Hello, 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 hello. Hey Furry, hey Val. Hey. So I don't know. I want to play some Zelda, right? But I feel like if I want to take this, like, if I want to get good at drawing, right, I need to stop putting in this work, and I need to stop. Oh dear, what's happening? Hey Furry, hey Val. Oh dear. I'm getting a crazy ass echo. I feel like if I want to take this, like, if I want to get good at drawing, right, I need to stop putting. Oh dear. Okay. Sorry about that, man. Sorry. I ended up getting that crazy echo. I apologize, man. I apologize about that. Good afternoon, Juan. Hello. Yeah, I want to play some Zelda, and maybe I'll play some Zelda a little bit later. I think I'll definitely play some Zelda tomorrow. But I want to, if I want to take this drawing thing kind of seriously, right? And I actually want to sort of improve and whatever, then I think it's going to be really, really important that I get in my practice, right? I get in sort of my relevant practice, my daily practice, my whatever, you know? Try and get good at this stuff. Or at least try and develop some skills, you know? So I'm gonna try and make sure that I'm doing enough practice, you know? Enough study, enough practice. I'm gonna follow that 50-50 rule, that course that I started in the last video from that was recommended to me by Moorstar. I'm gonna try and make sure I am following that sort of advice and do as much kind of practice as I can. Try and learn my fundamentals, and then see where it takes us. You know, see where it takes us. Val, I'm doing okay today. Now I don't know if you've kind of become a little bit aware of my routine at this point but by the time we get to sort of like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, usually things are a little bit more free for me. I want him to. Maybe I could have him facing that way. I don't know. But yeah, so I'll start to get in kind of my bigger streams the next couple of days. By the way, this is the iconic pot of olives. So whenever I'm streaming, I have this like scoop that I filled up with olives. And I sit here and eat olives. Item duplication and wrong warps have been discovered in the Zelda game. Oh no. In my precious Zelda game? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and 50-50 this. So 7-minute video followed by 7 minutes of drawing. Or however long it takes me to get through the video, that is, right?
One of the biggest challenges of learning how to draw, or really learning any skill in general, is fear. The fear of failure, the fear of wasting time, the fear of not being predisposed or uniquely blessed with talent. It goes on. Here I'm going to talk about one particular fear that I struggled with a great deal, and something against which I still wage an ongoing battle. The fear of a blank page. More specifically, I'm going to explain how I learned to deal with it. The fear of a blank page is at its very core a manifestation of the fear of failure. We sit down to draw, but that pristine, unmarred, perfect page stares up at us like a gawking crowd, waiting for us to mess up. The pressure is on. We start to feel this sense that the first mark we make will make or break our drawing. If we screw it up, there's no way the drawing will recover. But if we make the right mark, by some fluke or miracle, the fear doesn't abate. It just transfers over to the next stroke, like the drawing is an obstacle course and every new mark is an opportunity to lose the game. Obviously that's not how it works, but our emotions aren't exactly subject to logic. I took up drawing as a frequent hobby from the age of 12, and it wasn't until I was 23 years old that I really started facing the struggle head on. Until then, I'd kind of accepted that I was just bound to spend hours staring at a blank piece of paper or a blank canvas in Photoshop, and some nights I just wouldn't produce any results. My turning point came when a friend of mine showed me her sketchbooks from high school, and they were so different from my own. Where my pages were timid and sparse, many of which were abandoned after just a few marks, hers were bold, confident, and filled. They were full of experiments. They pushed her boundaries, and not once did they ever give an impression of fear. She drew and wrote whatever was on her mind, and not once did she even consider whether they'd come out well. It's not like all the drawings were good. There were plenty of mistakes and blunders throughout the pages, but the point is that it never mattered. These sketchbooks weren't there to represent her to the world. They existed only for her. It was those sketchbooks that made me realize that more than anything, I was a coward. A coward who only cared about how his drawings would make him look to others, whose motivation for drawing was more focused on the idea of being an artist. It was a shallow pursuit, and I only cared about being impressive. Keep in mind that none
Oh,
of this
hey,
is a
Mostar.
crime.
Yeah, we're
In
just
fact,
vibing
I'm
here
sure
for real.
many of you will relate to that sentiment. Lots of people see concept artists on the internet and just fantasize about drinking in the attention that they must be receiving. It's the allure of celebrity, and flashy and dazzling as it may be, it isn't tangible, it's not a real thing that we can work towards. It just leads us down a path of frustration, of unfair comparisons, and of anguish. In that despair, we forget why we wanted to draw in the first place. We forget about the stories we wanted to tell, the characters we wanted to bring to life, and the worlds we wanted to create. And all we have left is that empty need to be liked. It's a normal, human thing. And to be human is to be able to change.
Drake, I'm
So I
doing
gave myself
good, man.
a task
Just
so that
hanging
I
out.
too could change
Just hanging
and
out over
approach
here.
my art a little more as my friend did. I took a sketchbook and a ballpoint pen, and I promised myself that I would fill 2 pages of it in ink every single night before going to sleep. The goal was not to create wonderful drawings or drawings of anything in particular. I just had to fill the pages with something and really fill them. A single drawing isn't enough. The page had to be packed. If anything crossed my mind, even slightly, before I had the chance to reject the idea, I set to
Jerry!
drawing it because the page had to be full. There is nothing more gratifying than having a drawing come out well. To have that one page you can show off, perfect and unmarred. And unfortunately for me, this strategy basically made such a thing impossible. If by some fluke a drawing came out well, having to add another to the same page basically guaranteed that I'd ruin it. So if the page was destined to be ruined no matter what, then all that fear suddenly felt kind of, well, stupid. It didn't stop me from being afraid, but it did help me to at least complete my task. Every night, I wouldn't go to sleep unless the pages were full. And the more I filled up that sketchbook, night after night, the more I felt the joy of actually drawing return to me. While I wasn't embarrassed to show the sketchbook to people, that wasn't its purpose. So for the most part, I kept it to myself. The drawings were for me, and before too long, my relationship with drawing as a whole had taken a turn. Nowadays, some 8 years later, while I still do feel some of that fear in the back of my head, I find it a lot easier to just jump in and draw. It's also given me the confidence and a certain amount of comfort with the idea of just drawing things poorly that has really helped me pursue my craft more fully without getting caught up in my own ego. That doesn't mean my ego doesn't still get in the way, it's just easier to shove it down for a bit. More recently, some other things I've done that have helped include drawing where other people can see. Live streaming on Twitch and drawing with others in programs like Magma Studio hits the fear of failing to draw well against the fear of people watching me freeze up. But I suspect that might be a bit more daunting for people, and a younger me may not have handled it quite as well. But that's okay. We grow in baby steps. Before I call this video done, here's a peek at a few pages of the sketchbook in question, because of course I can't talk about it without showing at least a little bit. Initially I leaned a little bit too much on drawing bigger full-page drawings, but technically I still filled them in with writing as well. After that first day, I started packing them with many smaller drawings, exploring whatever crossed my mind. As you can clearly see, many of those drawings were very chicken scratchy and erratic, largely because I didn't know how to draw the things that I was trying to draw or how to approach any of it. I just tried. At this point, I had been drawing for a while, though I never really took it all that seriously, so my fundamentals were quite poor. But that's totally fine. The point of this exercise wasn't to draw well, it was just to get things onto that blank page. So even if you have no idea how to approach drawing the idea that came across your mind, take a swing at it anyway. Even if it just ends up being a bunch of scribbles, at least you'll be ruining that blank page. What's most important is that I put ink to paper, and I drew something. And I hope you will too.
Okay. That's like... That stuff Yoda's talking about, right? The nervousness or whatever. I think I've done those battles already. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like I've already tackled, I've already conquered a lot of the kind of... I mean, obviously not fully. I mean, who's like fully faced their demons, right? But I feel like I've put in a lot of work for stuff like that kind of already. So I'm not crazy worried about that. I mean, if I was, it's like... What else is on good? I'm trying to do this pose again I've put over here. If I was, I wouldn't be like hanging out with you guys. I wouldn't be live streaming this stuff, you know? So I understand that is a normal kind of concern and worry and whatever for a lot of people, but guess I'm not a normal person in that regard. But yeah, Jerry, those are the iconic olives. This is the olive. So I got a bunch of these scoops. They're from like a supplement thing, you know? And I ended up with a bunch of these scoops from... You get one of each of them. I like to fill them up with olives. And other things. Oh no, I've got olive juice on the paper. Oh my god. I got olive juice on the paper. I need to get a, I want a sketchbook, man. I like drawing on paper here because it feels like, it feels disposable. You know, it feels like, I know for a lot of people, like a blank piece of paper feels like high stakes, right? Like he was kind of talking about there. But for me, it feels like opportunity. I've got this blank piece of paper, I can do whatever with it. And if it screws up and if it sucks or whatever, I can just be like, chuck it away. You know what I mean? Like it feels low stakes to me, and it feels like something you can just like mess around with, and it's not an issue. I don't know. I'm gonna jump into the next 20 minutes.
I'm too busy.
Million Gold, the new fragrance by Rabanne.
Oh, Drake, I love olives. But it's okay, we don't all have to like the same things, you know? We're not required to all be liking the same things, you know? Okay, so. Let's check out this. We all have different tastes, don't we? Okay.
Here's an important topic. You've decided to follow this strange little internet man, who you're pretty sure is 3 boxes in a trench coat, into the wonderful world of drawing. But you're a busy little box yourself, and you don't have a lot of time to waste. What you want to know is this: how do I get the most out of Drawabox? Each lesson, speaking of lesson 1 onwards, consists of 2 main components. Lecture, where we go over concepts, explaining theory, and introducing you to some of the principles we're dealing with, and homework assignments. The homework assignments are specific. do X pages of this exercise, Y pages of that exercise, and so on. Students will often come to Drawabox with, let's call it, baggage. Baggage from years of traditional school and classes that push the idea that if you're doing only what's assigned, you're not doing enough. I like to refer to these kinds of people as min-maxers, like those in MMOs who insist on figuring out the perfect build, the perfect progression, and the perfect stat distribution for their characters. Min-maxers refuse to take things at face value. They feel that the world is hiding secrets from them and that only those who push, who ask, and who insist get ahead. There may well...
I used to be kind of like that, but I'm very much now of the just like face value, go with the flow, see what happens. I'll see how he characterizes that. Thanks for the encouragement on yesterday's stream. I ended up finishing prompt 1 last night. We were inspired by how you did your page to scroll with some things you like. That's sick, Jared. That's really cool. No, I think it's like, it's cool to just sort of like, even like, obviously I'm just messing around here. I'm just trying. But trying's punk rock, you know? So whenever you're around people who are like trying, they're like DIY, they're putting in effort and stuff like that, I think it's kind of, it can be kind of encouraging. So that's really cool. Yay, baggage.
be many things in this world that behave that way, but Drawabox is not one of them. Everything is laid out and available for free. There are no hidden tips and tricks, and if there were, they'd be freely available too. I'm saying this here because I cannot stress this enough. The best way to get the most out of Drawabox is by simply giving yourself lots of time to read, watch, and follow the instructions as closely as you can. When you sit down to work through a lesson, it's always going to start with some reading. You'll head over to the website, pop on over to the lesson you're at, and you'll read through the content that's there. Periodically, you'll come across some videos scattered throughout the material. When they come up, go ahead and give them a watch before continuing on to the next section of the reading. Do not try to only consume the material by jumping from video to video on YouTube. I know some of you will be tempted to do this, but you'll end up missing out on important information. For those of you who have a harder time with reading, and there are plenty of valid reasons for this, we actually just launched a new Drawabox audio player feature, which uses neural network-driven text-to-speech to read the material to you. We hope that it'll help those for whom large chunks of text is a deal breaker. We do, of course, recommend that you still try to follow along with the text as it's being read to you, so you can look at the diagrams and generally give yourself the best chance of absorbing the information. As you go through the written material, you'll encounter homework sections, where you'll find your assigned work. Some lessons, like Lesson 1, are broken up into multiple sections tackling different topics, and they'll each have their own homework sections, whereas later lessons have only one. Just as with watching the videos, you stop and work on the homework when it comes up. With the homework, your job is simple. Follow the instructions of each given exercise to the best of your current ability and understanding. Do not stray from those instructions, and do not attempt to complete more than what is assigned. Let's take a moment and look at what that really means. If you're assigned 2 pages, you complete 2 pages, and that's the work that you submit. Do not complete more, and do not do practice pages. These pages do not have to be perfect, or even good, so don't scratch out your mistakes. Your job is not to prove that you understand or that you can do the assigned task. Your job is to provide whoever's going to give you feedback a body of work upon which to base their understanding of where you are right now, so they can see what you do understand, what you don't understand, and what next steps would be best for you. Even if you did everything wrong, that goal would still be achieved. The one thing that is necessary is that you do not rush. Give yourself ample time to go through the instructions and to apply them. You must execute each form, shape, and mark to the best of your current ability. And when we get into Lesson 1, we'll go over some rather time-consuming processes that will help you achieve
Gigi,
this.
take care.
I know
Try and
it's
enjoy
asking a
work
lot.
best you can, you
It's
know?
normal to be self-conscious, and as inaccurate as it is It's normal to feel like this work is a representation of you as a person. Submitting work for feedback leaves us vulnerable to having our weaknesses called out, and it can often feel like we're presenting ourselves to receive a punch to the gut. I actually see this all the time in people submitting their work with lengthy self-critique, and it often comes down to the idea that if you point out the mistakes yourself, you are no longer the one being critiqued. Rather, you become an outside third party similar to the one giving the feedback, nodding along when they call out areas of weakness rather than feeling the sting of being on the receiving end. But that sting is important. The vulnerability means that you've opened yourself up, and you are as open to the feedback as possible. Anything you do to protect yourself will merely make the feedback less effective. It is far better to simply let your work speak for itself. And in all honesty, I instruct my teaching assistants to ignore it when students point out their own mistakes, as I don't want the critique the student receives to be contaminated. That brings us to the next point of how to get the most out of this course. Do not work in a vacuum and isolate yourself from others. As a beginner, you are not going to be equipped to identify what you do and don't understand from the material, what you're applying correctly and what you're not, and really what you should be spending your energy on. You'll do your best to follow the instructions, I hope, but having someone else review your work makes things far more straightforward. There are two main ways our students acquire feedback. There's the free community feedback, basically critique from other members of the community, which can be received on the Drawabox website platform, on our subreddit, and on our Discord chat server. Only the last of these options, the Discord server, is suitable for partial work, whereas you should have the entirety of a full lesson's homework completed prior to submitting to the subreddit or the Drawabox website. While community feedback is completely free, it does depend on the goodwill of other community members. This means that it's not guaranteed that you'll get responses, and that there is the possibility of getting feedback that isn't necessarily as accurate as it can be. In the future, we have plans for improving the reliability of community feedback and expanding what is available for our free students. But for now, you can check out the unofficial critique exchange program that one of our teaching assistants, Elodin, has set up on our Discord server. The other option, the paid official critique, is handled by a combination of myself and teaching assistants operating under my supervision. These critiques are in-depth and detailed, and while we do make use of pre-written chunks of text when we can, each critique is based on an analysis of your work. We use pre-written text where it's applicable, and write the rest as needed in order to be able to provide feedback as at low a price point as we can. Where community feedback has no real restrictions or rules, official critique is more strict in order to keep things efficient and effective, and so you'll have to adhere to the following rules. All students signing up for official critique must start at lesson 1, and only move on when they've been given permission to do so. If you've completed Drawabox work in the past, you're going to be starting over. The lessons are designed to highlight certain issues and address them when it's most appropriate. Jumping in on a later lesson can make these issues harder to detect and resolve. So, you essentially have until the end of lesson 1 to decide which route you'd like to take. Though there have of course been people who've used community feedback for a while before deciding to start over with official critique. You must work with the recommended tools. I'll go over what the tools are in a separate video, but at its core, it's that certain tools complement the course material very effectively, making it easier to internalize. This has nothing to do with trying to teach you how to use a specific medium, or to say that one medium is generally better than another. I myself am a digital artist, but I learned a ton from exploring my basics with traditional tools. Students are required to wait 2 weeks between submissions. If you submitted a lesson today and had it marked as complete, you would not be able to submit the next one until 14 days had passed. This is both to help students avoid rushing and to keep our staff from getting overwhelmed. This is not a deadline, and you should not interpret it as such. In fact, we pretty firmly try to discourage students from setting any deadlines for this course, regardless of their external goals. And lastly, submissions for official critique must be complete. For example, where Lesson 1 has 3 sections, lines, ellipses, and boxes, you would need to submit all 3 together rather than one at a time. I understand that you may feel uncertain about the line section while going into the boxes, and may be worried about using techniques incorrectly. This is not really a problem, though if you insist on getting some feedback, you can have the very helpful folks on our Discord server take a look. In order to submit homework for official critique, students use credits. Credits are acquired by signing up to our Patreon, though we would like to offer alternative options in the future. The earlier lessons and challenges cost 1 credit, whereas the later ones cost more. You might be wondering, why complicate things with credits? Why not offer each critique for a set dollar amount? And that would be an entirely fair question. The fact of the matter is that this credit system, annoyingly complicated as it is, allows us to offer students feedback at a very low price point. While you might pay around $5 US to get feedback on your Lesson 1 work, we pay almost double that to the teaching assistant critiquing your work, ensuring that you get reliable support for cheap, and our teaching assistants are compensated fairly for their time and skilled labor. We're able to do this without declaring bankruptcy because those credits expire if you haven't used them within 2 months, going towards subsidizing the overall price. Between this and some other avenues of revenue, Drawabox is able to focus on increasing access to information. This means that students who can afford to maintain a continuous pledge and allow their credits to expire do so, along with those students who purposely sign up at higher tiers to intentionally support the project more broadly. Whereas those who need tighter control over their budget can subscribe and unsubscribe as needed. Before we get back on track with the main topic of this video, there's one last thing I want to make very clear for anyone interested in signing up for official critique. Patreon charges you at the time of subscribing and on the first of each month until you cancel. So, if it's late into the current month and you're thinking about signing up, you may want to consider waiting until the first of the next month. If you do choose to sign up on the spot, you will get credits every time you're charged. But I want to make sure people only do that intentionally, as being double charged unexpectedly is never a pleasant experience. Of course, if that happens, you can always contact us for a refund.
Con la app de YouTube Music puedes descubrir remix tras remix tras remix tras remix.
Getting back to it, when submitting homework for feedback in either route, whether community or official, you may be assigned revisions. This is not a bad thing, and it is certainly not a punishment. But again, thanks to traditional academics, we may interpret it that way. At the end of the day, all it means is that there are some areas where you misunderstood something important, and we want to make sure that it gets resolved before we send you forwards. In the official critiques, revisions are included in the original credit cost within reason. If it goes beyond what we consider reasonable, we may charge additional credits or ask for a full redo on a case-by-case basis. The latter usually only happens when students have rushed. Remember, critiques are a collaborative effort between student and instructor, and so look to the critiques as an opportunity to catch what you may have missed, but not as a replacement for your own effort in going through the material. So, how do we submit our homework? On Reddit, it's just a matter of posting your work. On Discord, you can hop onto the channel labeled for the lesson you're working on and post it there. But let's take a look at how to actually go about submitting your work on the Drawabox website. The easiest way is to go to the actual lesson itself that you're trying to submit and find the Submit Homework for Review button. It's here at the top. This will take you to the submission form with the lesson already selected for you, as you can see here. If you're submitting for official critique, make sure that this option here, Submit for Official Critique, is toggled on. It'll show a list of the requirements that we've already discussed and show which ones are met. If you want to submit to the community, however, you can leave it unchecked, which will also give you the option to automatically cross-post to Reddit, although this does require you to connect your Reddit account under the account settings page. Next, we come to this list of the homework assignments from the lesson. We can check off what we've completed. Ideally, we'd be checking everything off. If not, the submission will be considered partial, and while you can submit it that way, it's unlikely it'll be seen by others and it'll just go to your personal sketchbook. Down here, we can include a link to the homework itself. We don't host your images ourselves, so you'll have to use a third-party image host. We recommend Imager, because it doesn't require you to create an account, allows you to post your work as an album, and while it has a tendency to put images out of order sometimes, it still makes life a lot easier for us when critiquing, since we can see all the images at a large size and jump around freely without having to click through an album. Note that when you're using Imager, you can just copy the URL for your album and paste it directly into the submission form. It'll generate a preview like this to demonstrate that it has worked. Of course, if for whatever reason Imager doesn't work for you, you can use any other image host as long as we don't have to download any files. Just keep in mind that if we can link to individual images easily, that's quite helpful. It's a lot harder to refer to specific drawings if the page they're on can't be linked to, so things like PDF files are definitely not ideal. And lastly, if you have any questions or comments, you can put them here. Just remember not to self-critique, not to self-deprecate, and be brief. You can, of course, just leave it blank. And that's it. Go ahead and click the submit button, and you're off to the races. If you've submitted for official critique, you'll get your feedback within a few days, so that's a good time to jump back into your 50% rule responsibilities. You'll be tempted to jump right into the next lesson or challenge, but remember, you may not until your submitted work is marked as complete. If you're submitting to the community, then ultimately you decide how long you want to wait. There's an important question to ask. Once you've had a lesson marked as complete, what does that really mean? Does it mean that we're done with these exercises forever? Unfortunately, no. What having a lesson marked as complete means is that you are demonstrating a decent understanding of the material that was covered, and that you appear to get what the goal for each exercise is meant to be and how to keep pushing towards it. It also means that you should take those exercises and add them to a pool of warm-up exercises. At the beginning of each sitting, you'll pick 2 or 3 of these exercises and practice them for 10 to 15 minutes in order to keep developing those skills and to keep them sharp. This doesn't mean that you're expected to complete a certain quantity of the given exercise in that time. Some exercises are quite complex and time-consuming, and so you'll likely either do a subsection of the larger exercise or spread it out across several separate warm-up sessions. Conversely, this also means that grinding away and doing more of an exercise than was assigned prior to getting your actual feedback is a complete waste of your time. As I've said before, put the time in to read, follow, and execute the instructions to the best of your current ability, and then submit your work. Keep in mind that when you spend time churning out twice as many pages, that's twice as much time you could have spent on doing what was assigned that much better. Do the best of your current ability. That is all we ever ask. Remember, above all else, what this course is focused on. The goal is not to have you leave as a fully developed master of draftsmanship. Our intent is for you to leave with a good grasp of how to approach learning, and to prove to yourself that you can learn, so that you can venture out into this big, wide world of resources and make the most of them without feeling lost. Before you go, if you're interested in other great and affordably priced learning resources, check out our sponsor, New Masters Academy. They've got thousands, literally thousands, of hours of video lectures from acclaimed instructors like Glenn Vilppu, Michael Matesi, Steve Houston, and a ton of others. If you sign up with the coupon Drawabox22, you'll get a full 35% off your first billing cycle. Even as Drawabox helps you level up on these useful tools and skills, there's no time like the present to dive into your real interests, so they can grow alongside your fundamental skills, developing you into a well-rounded artist. And of course, if Drawabox's approach doesn't end up being for you, it's only one path of many. NMA's got a ton of courses that dive deep into the fundamentals as well. You'll find a link to new masters in the description below.
Yeah, so Furry, I'm gonna see how things go. So I'm gonna like start with these videos, and then of course it was telling me that I don't think these seem important for this kind of like lesson 0 that I'm in. It's like really stressing looking at the reading as well. So I'm gonna participate in doing the reading. I'm gonna participate in doing these lessons. And I'm going to do that, 50-50 rule they want me to do. Rather saying like, for the 50% of the time I spend, on this reading or on this, these videos or on the homework assignments or whatever, I do my additional 50% of kind of like free practice or whatever. I'm gonna definitely like follow all these steps, and then I'll see. I'll have a look at kind of these other services like, in the program, and if I think like, oh hey, this is something I'm getting really invested in, it's really important to me, then I'll kind of jump in there and do the sort of additional stuff and whatever. So that's kind of my thinking. That's kind of my idea of how I'm gonna sort of approach this. I'm just kind of training in general, Red. So like I do have Procreate. So the idea of maybe doing like a comic or something eventually, that sounds cool to me. That sounds kind of exciting. So yeah, I'm not exactly like have a specific, goal in mind of like, oh, I would like to blah blah blah. Right? I just kind of want to learn these skills, get better at this, and go from there, and kind of just like have the route to then be creative and make different things and what like that. So I think I'm gonna check out. So we've done 2020. Okay, I'm gonna check out another one, and then we're gonna have to start drawing, right? Oh. Oh, no. Yes, I'm just learning to learn,
In previous videos, we've gone over what Drawabox is, how to maintain and nurture a balanced, healthy mindset towards what we produce, and how to get the most out of this course as a whole. While there are plenty of other smaller Lesson 0 topics that I want to make videos on in the future, the last major topic we have to talk about are our tools. That is, what tools do we recommend you use when going through this course, and more importantly, why? One of the big, contentious aspects of this course is that we really stress the benefits of working through these lessons and exercises in ink. Over the years, I've come across hundreds, if not thousands of students who insist that they understand this recommendation well enough to decide for themselves. But most of them end up oversimplifying it to, we don't want you to erase. And so, you'll hear lots of people saying, oh, I'm working digitally, but I'm not using the eraser tool, so it's fine. Allow me to assure you that it goes a bit farther than that. Let's look at the digital side of things first, as there are different comparisons to be made with different mediums. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that all digital media is somehow lesser. Being a digital artist myself, which I've mentioned several times in past videos, I'm all too well aware of the chip we have on our shoulders after decades of being told that digital art isn't real art and other such nonsense. That's not the discussion we're having here, so let's set those concerns aside for the moment. Instead, allow me to suggest a crazy notion. That while digital tools are awesome, allow us to churn out work for our clients and employers quickly and efficiently, and tamp down on all kinds of long-term costs and expenses, perhaps for that same reason, those same digital tools are not as effective when it comes to learning, developing healthy habits, and appreciating the time and effort that goes into the learning process. Digital tools exist to make us quicker and more efficient, whether that's for writing essays for school, doing your taxes, or drawing a book cover for an up-and-coming author. But in so doing, they also lean very hard into training our brains to need instant gratification. The desire to get everything faster. Back on dial-up, we'd wait what felt like ages for a single page to load. And don't get me started on downloading files. But today, we get antsy if it takes more than a second or two to access a web page. This manner of thinking is not a good match for learning, because it merely compounds our natural desire to learn faster, to reach our goals more quickly. It goes hand in hand with the min-maxing I spoke about in the last video. Humans don't want to wait, at least if we don't have to. Given a choice between taking our time and a promise of quick and easy results, we'll go down the latter path even if we know that it's probably too good to be true. No matter how you change your digital setup, tearing out the Control-Z keys or chewing the eraser off your stylus, it won't change the core purpose of the computer itself. Everything it does is towards a single goal: to be faster. Learning to draw, and likely learning in general, is not about being faster. It's about feeling the purpose behind every stroke, about committing to the actions we take, about allowing our mistakes to occur and learning from them as we move ever forwards. Back in the first video, What is Drawabox?, I mentioned that one of the overarching goals of the course is to develop your instincts, so that when you draw your own stuff, you won't need to consciously think about every last little aspect of the marks that you draw. You'll focus on what it is that you want to draw in a big picture sense, and your subconscious and instincts will handle the specific marks and spatial relationships. But that's the goal, to develop your instincts. This is not something that we achieve by using those instincts, as that simply results in a scribbly mess. Instead, to achieve that goal, for every mark we make here, we push ourselves to be aware, to plan and prepare, and again, to take our time. Ink, and specifically the fine liner pens we use throughout the bulk of the lessons here, pushes us in that direction by its very nature. And so, it makes a lot of sense for it to be our tool of choice here. Just as all of the lessons and exercises build upon one another to create a cohesive system to help you develop in the intended areas, the use of ink reinforces the principles and habits introduced here in ways that digital tools cannot. Hopefully that clarifies things on the digital side of things, but what about other tools? Let's go through a few rapid fire. Why not pencil? Pencil allows us to sketch faintly and lightly to avoid committing to our strokes. In so doing, they allow us to think directly on the page, and so they encourage us to jump in and act, which goes against pushing students to think about their actions beforehand. In that sense, pencil is great for drawing confidently, but isn't terribly conducive to considering our intentions before each stroke. Why not ballpoint pen? So ballpoint pen is technically allowed in some cases. In Lesson 1 and the box challenge, you can use ballpoint pen, though we still recommend a fine liner.
Fine liner.
This is mainly to help students get started sooner. Then, for lessons 6 and 7, ballpoint becomes strongly recommended, because at that point, students have had plenty of opportunity to develop the habits that we're looking for, and we try to shift their focus away towards new challenges. That said, ballpoint is still very similar to a pencil. It can make permanent marks, but it allows you to sketch quite faintly and leans into the idea of making a loose underdrawing and then a cleanup pass, an approach that we specifically avoid throughout this course.
Oh.
And what about gel pens? I would group these in with ballpoint. They provide a richer, darker stroke, but they still don't have the same kind of weight and pressure variation that fine liners give us. So I wouldn't rely on them in lessons 2 and onwards. I also wouldn't use them for lessons 6 and 7 just because the richness of the ink makes things more complicated. As you can see here, I don't have a black one. Though it's worth mentioning that as long as your colors aren't super bright or neon, then you don't actually have to use black. There are, of course, other tools. Dip pens and fountain pens, for example, that are also similar to fine liners. But for the sake of simplicity, I would still strongly recommend sticking to what we're using. You never know what other complications may come up, whether a given tool will have a more extreme learning curve, or if it's just going to distract you from focusing on the given exercise's core purpose. So, long story short, the tools we recommend go hand in hand with the concepts we teach and the habits we try to develop in our students. It has nothing to do with what long-term goals you may have. I've had plenty of people insist that they intend to work digitally. That has no impact on what is or isn't more effective for our purposes here. Even if you wanted to learn how to draw in ink, I'd still recommend that you take separate courses to teach you the ins and outs of ink separately from Drawabox. To that point, here are some courses over from our sponsor, New Masters Academy, that either delve into getting you more familiarized with a variety of tools, like
Oh, you've been practicing anthroanatomy, Juan. Frickin' cool. And hey, Guy. Hello, Prophet. What game did you find, Guy? Crappy game. What did you find? Have you ever used a fountain pen? Max bought me one a few and a several bottles of ink. Yeah, I've used one before. I'm not very good with stuff like that. Maybe you've looked at my hand. I'm pretty goofy at, like, holding a pen in general. So, I've never been great with, like, fountain pens or stuff like that. I end up, because you can, like, smudge it quite easily. I think they're really nice. I think they're really pretty, but I've never been great with them. This wouldn't be a very good
video if I didn't actually show you the tools that we're using in this course. First, we'll start with the tools you'll need now, or at least soon. And then we'll look at the tools that come up much later in the course that you do not need to rush out to get immediately. So, looking at these fine liners first, Scylla actually reviewed a ton of different kinds a while back when she was going through the box challenge. You'll find those videos on her channel, which I've linked below. So fortunately, we have a wide variety of examples of fine liners. There are a ton of brands at different price points, with Sharpie pens, Sharpie Ultrafines, and Sakura Microns being along the cheaper side of things. And in my experience, having less resilient nibs that don't last quite as long. And Staedtler pigment liners and Faber-Castell Pitt artist pens being on the more expensive side, but generally being more robust. My pen of choice is the Staedtler pigment liner, but that's really just my taste. I should mention that regardless of what brand you get, you do have to be careful with using them. Beginners tend to apply a lot of pressure when they draw, which can flatten down the tip and impede ink flow. You can improve ink flow somewhat by holding the pen at a higher angle, but this can be quite uncomfortable. Regardless of what brand you choose, pay attention to the tip of the pen. That's what will help you identify them as a fine liner or not. In addition to this, we specifically limit our students to only using the 0.5mm size for their drawings. A lot of brands try to sell different sizes in a batch. This is fine if you intend to use the other sizes for other projects, but otherwise it helps to be able to get a pack of 0.5mm pens rather than a range of sizes. For the sake of transparency, Sakura Microns look like this with the tan shell and all, but this one isn't actually a fine liner. It's their plastic nib type, which is actually fine to use in Drawabox as well. They do sell regular fine liners as well, just to be sure to get their 0.5mm size, which is actually listed as 0.8 in their sizing for some reason. Their 0.5 pen is actually 0.45mm, which isn't such a huge difference though, so don't worry about it if you get them mixed up. In fact, in general, anything between the 0.4mm and 0.6mm range is okay to use for Drawabox, with 0.5 being ideal. I've been recommending fine liners for this course since I started sharing these lessons, but it's undeniable that depending on where you live, fine liners can be expensive. I remember going to a Michael's, which is a craft supply store here in Canada, And I remember them selling pigment liners for like $4 or $5 Canadian each. Now, these are generally pretty well made, so you should be able to get a fair bit of use out of them, but still, that's expensive for a single pen, and that's a problem. A problem we've more recently tried to solve by sourcing, importing, and selling fine liners ourselves. These are the pens that we've been selling. I chose them based on their similarity in quality to the pigment liners, which again are my preferred pen, and we sell them in packs of 10 for $17.50 US. Although that price may be subject to change in the future with supply chains and all that nonsense. Each pen is tested before it's packed, and we do the testing on the back of a sticker, which we include in the pack.
It's cute.
I do want to be clear about one thing though. We are a small company, so we're only able to offer free shipping within the continental United States. Outside of the US, the shipping costs can make it less attractive, so be sure to check out your other options. I'm honestly pretty impressed with the pens themselves. The outer shell is cheap plastic and even has some typos on it, but the ink is rich and dark, and the flow is good. When Scylla used them on her own homework, she was able to get through all of Lesson 1 and halfway through the box challenge before it started showing any signs of wear. Of course, once a pen's ink flow starts to get inconsistent, I would recommend setting it aside. Partially dried pens can still be great for loose sketching, but that would not be appropriate for this course. One last side note. A few of the exercises, especially those in the box and cylinder challenges, have us use pens of different colors to analyze our work in a specific manner. These do not have to be fine liners. Really, anything that is visually different from your main fine liner is good to use, though having a few other colors can definitely be useful. If you do want to use fine liners for this, Sharpie does sell a set of cheap colored fine liners. But really, blue or red ballpoint, gel pens, even colored pencils can be used for these analyses. Just make sure that they're sharp so your marks aren't too thick. My mistake. This is the last side note. I'm actually cutting this in afterwards because I forgot to talk about brush pens. While these are by no means required, they can help when we have shapes that we intend to fill in. You can also use a thicker fine liner for this. Brush pens are similar to fine liners, but once you pop off the cap, you'll see the main difference. The nib is long and flexible, like a brush. The brand doesn't matter, so don't go for anything too pricey unless you plan on using them for something else as well. This Pentel Pocket brush pen, for instance, is definitely fancier, and you saw me using one in the 50% rule video. Any of these others will do just fine as well, however, and you may actually find them to
All you need is some... Oh, your inks went bad. Dude. Yeah, they dry up, don't they? Quill. I don't think I could use a quill. So, but Molestar, you're talking about like, by like a big pen? You mean something like this? I mean, these I can get for free. These I have access to like boxes of them. But I want to try this stuff, man. I want to try these fine liners. It's always kind of like exciting getting like new equipment and tools. Like, you know, you get like a new pedal for your guitar. But I want to try out these fine liners he was showing, like this stuff, like back here. They look cool. I'm gonna go look
easier
tomorrow.
to use due to their slightly stiffer brush. This one from Faber-Castell also comes in a pretty chunky size, promising a longer lifespan as far as the ink is concerned. Keep in mind that all of your line work, including the actual design of the shape that you want to fill in, should still be drawn with your main driver, the 0.5mm fine liner. Do not draw with the brush pen in this course. Only use it to fill in the shapes that have already been designed. This will allow you to be more intentional and purposeful, whereas trying to paint the shapes on with a brush pen from the get-go tends to get messy. We've got our fine liners, but what about paper? I get a ton of students who try to find the ideal sketchbook so they can keep all of their work together in a nice, organized fashion. Not all sketchbooks are equal, however, and not all paper is the same. I think the best choice for this course is good old printer paper, which you can get pretty cheaply, like a ream of 5.
Yeah, dude, this is also what I'm using. I'm using paper, because honestly, I have access to that as well. I've just taken like, I've just taken those 500 sheet packets. I've just taken them. I'm just like, okay, I'm having that. So I got a bunch of this paper. So yeah. So I've got, that's what I'm working with here. And that's why I'm being so like, I'm not worrying about it because yeah, I've just like taken them. Pen with erasable inks in, pencil use normal. I like friction erasable. Brown stick can go very thin with low pressure, with fat with high pressure. Most I'm I'm not super clear what you were talking about. Are you talking about like ballpoint pens? Is that what you're talking about? This is a ballpoint pen, right? That's what this is. And then what he's showing are fine liners. But I'm not sure what you're talking about. I'm not sure. Oops.
500 for $10. It's made for ink,
Okay,
since
ballpoint.
that's
Okay.
what printers use. It's cheap, and most importantly, it's not already attached to the rest of your work, so you don't have to stress out about each page being perfect.
Yeah, I don't need this. I don't need this. I'm cool with the not perfect page or whatever. I don't care about that. I don't need to be sold on that.
So you can have a nice little perfect book when you're done.
I don't care about that.
Of course, if you want to have a nice little book at the end of all your Drawabox work, print shops are able to take a pile of papers and turn them into a lovely little book of your progress. Just keep in mind that having something nice to show off should never take priority over the lessons and exercises themselves and doing them to the best of your current ability. There are, of course, other kinds of paper, and the stuff you'll find in the majority of the sketchbooks you'll find in local stores will probably be geared more towards mixed media, or dry media. Paper designed to be used for graphite and charcoal is generally going to be rougher, with more tooth to it, so it can hold onto the marks better. This also means that it'll happily suck down way more ink from your pens, causing you to get less use out of each one. It's really just easier to grab printer paper and save your sketchbooks for your 50% rule work. The last thing you'll want to have on hand is a ruler, or some other kind of straight edge. I like this one because it's
Straight edge? We're talking straight edge? We're talking straight edge? We're going punk rock here? Okay, sketchbook for 50%. We start talking straight edge and I'm gonna start thinking about minor threat, man.
transparent and has grid lines, allowing me to align in parallel or perpendicularly to other elements in my drawings. Of course, any reliable straight edge will do. So the edge of a book, or even a piece of paper folded over several times to give you a firm edge. Just make sure that whatever you use can produce reliably straight lines for the few cases in which we'll use them. So that covers the tools we'll be using throughout most of the course, but the floodgates do open up a little bit more when we hit Lesson 6. At this point, we start getting into much more technical drawing, where freehanding all of our line work becomes more of a distraction than it's worth, and where we can learn more about the focus of those last few lessons and challenges by leveraging some additional tools. For these, the trusty ruler or straight edge becomes much more widely used, but we also make use of some additional tools like ellipse guides and French curves. Though keep in mind that these are, again, not tools you're going to need until you're way farther into the course, so you should not be going out to get them now. In future videos for those lessons, I will explain how each tool can be used. The main reason I'm mentioning them here is that the ellipse guide is a bit of a tricky fish. A full set of ellipse guides that gives you a full range of small to large sizes and all the widths you could possibly need will cost you an arm and a leg, or at least upwards of $100 American. Note how each individual set has ellipses of different widths, or degrees, which is a term that you'll learn all about in Lesson 1. This is actually only a few sheets from the full set, which just didn't read too well on camera when I dumped them all down here. I am not recommending you buy this. Instead, you can pick up what's called a master ellipse template, which is a single sheet that crams as many smaller ellipses of varying widths as it can manage. While this does mean that you're limited to a certain maximum size, this is sufficient for the two places where the ellipse guides plays the biggest role: the 25 wheel challenge and Lesson 7. Trust me, you don't need more than this, though you're going to have to accept that in the wheel challenge that your wheels are going to have to be a little bit smaller than you'd probably like. Like with the pens, in the future we hope to be able to actually produce our own ellipse guides and sell them at a far more reasonable price. When we are able to do this, I'll mention it in the video description below, but at least at the time of uploading, that's going to be a ways off. There is a last tool I haven't talked about, mainly because I forgot, so again, I'm adding it here separately from the rest. It's our working environment, mainly our desk and chair. I cannot stress enough how important the environment in which we do our...
Oh, guys, I think you would be disgusted by what is being considered a desk right now. I'm not going to get into it right now.
Our learning is, and how it can impact how effectively we absorb information. Your workspace is going to be a reflection of your frame of mind, so making sure that it's clean and organized really makes a difference. The same can be said about your posture, so sitting up straight matters as well, but this is impacted by the height of our tabletop and chair, which can have a pretty big impact on how comfortably we can work and learn. The usual rule of thumb I employ is that you should be able to bend your elbows at a 90-degree angle while placing your hands flat on the tabletop.
Nope.
If the elbows bend is less than 90 degrees, then the table's too tall or the chair is too short. And the opposite is true if the elbows bend is greater than 90 degrees, although in my experience, sitting a little higher isn't a big problem. This is admittedly something I've struggled with quite a bit, being that I'm very short, only 5 feet tall in fact. It's led to all kinds of issues where raising myself up on a chair by sitting on a cushion led to me neglecting support from my feet and legs, but I won't get into that. Just take care of your body and treat it well. Some students do get concerned when they see the fancier setups that some people use, with angled drafting tables and all, and ask if this is necessary. I can happily say that it's not. It certainly helps to draw on an angled surface, since on a flat tabletop, the top of the page is going to be farther away from you than the bottom of the page, resulting in some distortion. But this is something that you can learn to account for with experience, and something that can also be reduced by getting in the habit of rotating your page often to find a comfortable angle of approach for the marks that you want to make, rather than keeping it at the same orientation. I do get students who do not have access to a dedicated workspace with a desk and a chair. For them, sometimes a kitchen table is a workable alternative, and if there is no appropriate place in their home, a public library may work instead, as they often have tables for people to work at and free Wi-Fi. And that about covers it. These are the tools that you're going to be using throughout this course, and the reasoning behind them. Those of you planning to submit for official critique will need to follow these recommendations as strict requirements, while the rest of you are encouraged to follow suit, but ultimately we leave those decisions up to you.
Okay, cool. So, what we've done today is we've watched two 20-minute videos, and we've drawn 20 minutes, so I need to draw 20 minutes more. That's kind of the, the deal here, is for every hour of Drawabox, we do 1 hour of drawing. So I'm gonna spend the next how long we got? We got like so 40 minutes, 1 hour 20. So I got 15 minutes more of drawing. Cool, that works out for me. So I think I'm gonna draw for 15 minutes or so. After I've done that, I'm gonna get myself something to eat. And then I'll probably hop on again and play a little bit of Legend of Zelda. Tears. I keep saying Tears of the Kingdom. It's not Tears of the Kingdom. It's Echoes of Wisdom. There's wisdom. That wisdom's just echoing. And I'm quite excited. I think I'm going to end up finishing that tomorrow, right? Because I'm not going to end up playing loads today, if I do. But I'm pretty sure I am. I'm pretty sure my plan is I want to eat. And then jump into Echoes of Wisdom. But yeah. I'm vibing, man. I'm having a fun time. And I think that the kind of accountability of doing this like in front of an audience, whether anybody actually shows up as or not, is kind of by the by. I mean, I enjoy you guys being here, but if I'm on my own, I think it's still okay. But I think just the idea of like creating the audience, I don't know what the hell I'm drawing over here. Some goofy ass sort of cat creature. Kinda looks cursed, right? Let's make him... Dude, it's like not Garfield. It's like my original character. Fargield. Dude, what is my desk setup? Jerry, I don't have a desk. So my desk setup is I don't have a desk. What I've got here is I've got a very large set of drawers that my clothes are in, which is about the height of a desk. So I can't put my legs underneath here, because underneath here, you can hear that, is the drawer for my clothes. Right? So I've got this, my PC's on it, there's a record player on it over there, on this side, there's a record player over there. Get the PC monitor here and everything. It's not optimal. It's fine. It's serviceable. Hey, Robert. Hey, I'll see your beast. It's not, it's not optimal. It's something, It's something. Yeah. It's certainly something. Oh, blah, 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 banana. Banana. You're working on it, turned over. Let's go, man. Okay, cool. Okay, we're in the same boat here. We're in the same boat. Like in videos when you you see little parts of my home. You're seeing the less ratchet parts of my home, You're seeing the parts that are a little bit more, a little bit better. I seem familiar to you. In what sense do I seem familiar to you? The Sayo Beast. I don't know how I could seem familiar to you. Because I'm a stranger, no? I'm just like some dude. Some guy. Or maybe I am someone. Maybe I'm like the maybe I'm like the persona of and there's some big time celebrity. Or someone you know. Ding 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 ding. Oh, thanks for the subscription. I got shocked there. I was like, what's that ding 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 ding? Because we haven't had many of those yet. But thank you for the subscription. I draw in bed with a personal table, which I use for breakfast in bed. Oh, dude, yeah, I like those, man. I like those little breakfast. I used to have one of those, but I broke it. But I broke the poor thing. But yeah, I used to have one of those little tables. Okay, I guess we're all in the club of like not having a real desk. Well, not all of us, but at least some of us, man. At least some of us are existing. I'm gonna draw another chicken. Am I allowed to put chickens on like every page? Is that like acceptable? To just kind of put my chicken on. I like drawing these chickens, man. I find it fun. Kind of went goofy shape to kind of avoid this plant here, but whatever. Kind of make these bong-eyed chickens, you know. Cock-a-doodle-doo. Cock-a-doodle-doo. But yeah, Jerry, I think I've done, you know, we've got prompt number 2, any other OC or persona. Well, we've got, over here, we've got Bulbasaur. Over here, we've got Spider-Man. Over here, we've got my original character, Fargield, you know? So I feel, in my own way, I've achieved kind of prompt 2. So I think that's going to kind of be how I do this. I think I'm just going to do these kind of like sketch pages and whatever and mess around and have fun. Or, you know, whatever sort of activities might be required of me as per Drawabox. And then somehow integrate in whatever Jerry's prompt happens to be from the 30-day challenge. I drew a pyramid head over here from Silent Hill 2. I have a desk but it's too short. I can't use it for more than 2 hours so I can sort. Oof. Oof, oof, oof. Yeah, so he was talking about, you know, improving the desk, or by adjusting the height of the desk, which I guess is kind of tricky to do, or adjusting the height of the chair is what they were talking about in the Drawabox video. Let me just get a water real quick. My throat's been dry for like a hot minute. Actually, I got myself some apple juice. Jerry, that's a vibe. That's such a vibe, man. That's really, really cool. Well, you're obviously encouraging me, you know, by coming up with these prompts and whatever, and hanging out. So like, stuff's kind of going vice versa here. So I appreciate your encouragement completely, you know. I'm gonna put in a little Chaos Emerald. The Chaos Emeralds. Chaos Control. Dude, I am so freaking excited for this Sonic X Shadow Generations. Pregnant Mr. Beast. I'm not sure about that. But what's Mr. Beast? He's just like this goofy guy, isn't he? Isn't Mr. Beast like, what type of hair does Mr. Beast have? Does he have just sort of like regular hair? I'm not gonna make him pregnant. But he kind of has these soulless eyes, doesn't he? And he's always smiling. Has he got a goatee? And he's like, eat Mr. Beast. Candy. Like, that's Mr. Beast, right? That's what he kind of gets up to in his spare time. But Jerry, I'm glad that you're vibing. I'm gonna really try and like do this like a lot of days, you know? Like I'm gonna try and do this a lot of days of the week. Because I think it's going to be something that's going to kind of just like add up over time. Like with everything, like any sort of practice. I think it's going to be something that sort of like adds up over time. Just give me a second, guys. Yeah, so what was the next thing? Oh yeah, I wanted to draw some more bird stuff. I wanted to draw some thought that would be kind of cool. Maybe draw some more bird stuff, maybe up here. Oh, this guy's got a big like a big cranium. Yeah, Jerry, we need to get like some. We need to find some places we can check out all the Jerry content, you know? I totally agree with Juan. We need to find a place we can see some Jerry action. Maybe we should do a little Jerry somewhere. You know? Oh. Dude, we're doing like fearsome Jerry. We're doing some fearsome Jerry. We got to giving him like these big teeth. I'm just kind of drawing a tiger from memory. I don't know. This isn't my official Jerry. We will provide an official Jerry at some point. This is kind of transformed into something else. I'm gonna give him little feet and a tail, so he can kind of run about and can kind of go places. Let's just put a shape here. What the hell could this be? Let's just make it a goofy face. Kind of sad. Kind of a ghost, maybe. Kind of a skull. Ooh, let's make this a skull. Oh no, it's like a mushroom. Let's make this like a mushroom. Yeah, so it's like a mushroom that looks like a skull. So kind of watch out for that, you know? Yeah, Jerry, you should totally Oh, I really like this More Star like shared this like jacket the other day, and it was like a star. Because, you know, More Star. And the star looked like zonked out. It was kind of like this. I really enjoyed it. It was kind of like really zonked out. Alright guys, that's my what's today? Today is the 2nd of October 2024. So that was our we did our 40 minutes of the... What's the idea? We did our 40 minutes of drawing. And we did our 40 minutes of watching Drawabox stuff. We're getting closer to actually starting the thing. You know, we're getting through the beginnings there. Quite happy about that. That's really cool. I'm gonna get some fine liner pens. I think I'm gonna get a sketchbook more just for like a thing to keep in my bag. So when I'm kind of on like the bus or when I'm bored somewhere, I can like draw out some stuff and things like that. And I'm glad you like my little apocalyptic mushroom. Because it's kind of like a skull as the eyes on the nose, and then it's like its stalk is like the teeth kind of thing. But yeah, man, yeah, happy October, man. Happy October, 2nd of October. So I'm gonna drop off and go get something to eat. And my plan is to come back for a little bit to run around on Legend of Zelda because I really want to play some more. So I'm gonna go have something to eat. I think I'm gonna cook up some pasta, and then I'm gonna jump on and play some Zelda. At least that's my intention. You know, sometimes plans change, but that is what I wish to do. But again, thank you for joining me, and this is gonna be the plan. I'm gonna try and kind of hop on as much as I can, and do Drawabox lessons, and then follow up the Drawabox lesson and match that time that I spend watching the lessons, just kind of sketching away and drawing and stuff like that. And I think just like posting this and doing these kind of like creates a sort of accountability, and it'll keep me doing it. You know, it'll keep me doing it. And I like doing stuff like this where it's got like progression, it's got like a system and blah 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 blah. But yeah, so if you're around later, I might see you when I'm playing Zelda. If not, thank you for stopping by. Thank you for saying hello, and maybe I'll see you another day. But you guys take care, and again, thank you for drawing with me, or watching me draw, or watching the lessons with me, right? And if you got stuff to share, please let me know wherever you share it, because I want to check out the stuff that you guys may or may not be doing. But yeah, take care. Have a good day, everybody. I might see you in a little bit. And that's going to be bye-bye for me for now.